Hello everybody and welcome to this video. Here's Ahmad Naser from HNW Consult Mina. In this video we're gonna show you how to work with Jquery and Ajax using front controller architecture for Salesforce. In this video we're gonna show you how to work with the front control architecture to make a front controller router for the request in a Visualforce page. This is pretty much awesome because you're gonna be able to make requests and route these requests to a specified Ajax actions in the Salesforce pages and controllers. So let's begin. First thing I have here a description of what we're gonna do. First thing, as you can see here in the page, I just gonna have an MVC test page, and this page has an input parameter as a text field. When you click on this search contact button, you're gonna go to the server and get a JSON result representing a data for contact using JSON format. So, yep. Let me just go back to the description here. Alright, so we're gonna be able to do this Ajax request. So in order to do this Ajax request, you have to put some parameters. I have here an input field, as you can see here. We have an input field. You just type, for example, A. It's gonna go search the contact table using Ajax function and return the result as JSON format. So I'm just gonna inspect the element to show you what we do here. I'm just gonna go here to resource to network, clear the console, and just type, for example, A, search contact. It's gonna do a JSON request to the server. I'm just gonna get the response, and after that I'm just gonna display it here inside a div in the JSON response. So we're gonna see here we got this request. So open this in the new tab. So you're gonna see this is a Visualforce page called HNW front dispatcher, and we just give it an action called action1, and we give it a parameter as serialized object. So here we got this response page, as you can see. It's in JSON format. You can go to website like jsonlint.com and you can validate this JSON format. You can see here it's valid. So this is a JSON format. We send the JSON format to the server. We got JSON format from the server. So we're gonna see in this tutorial how to do something with these data. So you can get this data response into an object and then bind it to a template or bind it to an HTML element and do some fancy stuff with it. Alright. First thing, as you can see here in the description, alright, we send the request to the server. And this request to the server is sent by Jquery. So I'm just gonna click on search content. This search content button, you can go down here in the description image. So I'm just gonna go down and document already here inside this page called MVC test. Inside MVC test, this page, we have this input and we have this search content. When I click on this button, I'm just gonna make an Ajax request to the other page called Ajax dispatcher. And what is Ajax dispatcher? Ajax dispatcher is basically a page that is linked to a method in the controller called HNW front control. Front control has a method called do route, and do route takes. We're gonna explain this, but wait a minute. Let me just back to the flow of description. Here we got this search button. When I click on this search button, I'm just gonna go and take the input of this input field. Alright, we have this input field. So I'm just gonna take the input field data. So in order to do that, I gotta go here, include a static resource in the Visualforce page, Ajax, include script. I'm just gonna include the URL for resource Jquery files, Jquery 1.32. You have to include this Jquery inside your document. Alright, and after that, I'm just gonna make a script inside the Visualforce page document already. And this document already has a lot of functions here. One of these functions is this, search input. Search input is this button, just basically this button. When I click on this button, I'm just gonna take the query string here, Q. I'm just gonna take the input, A for example, and take this A, alright, and give it as a request to the server. So I'm just gonna go here. Wait a minute. Okay, search input, click. When I click on this button, I'm just gonna make this function, alright, and this function first, I just gonna say, alright, status HTML, making a Jquery request to the page when we get started. Alright, and this is in the page before we send the request, Ajax request. This is the code when we send the request. I'm just gonna say, okay, $, the get JSON for the page for this front dispatcher that we have, which is connected to the HW front controller. So this is our page, HW front dispatcher. So we're gonna pass the request to this page, alright? And this page takes two things, action and parameters. The first thing is action. I have many action, many methods. Each method has a name. For example, I have action 1, action 2, method 1, method 2. Alright, action is the same as method, alright? So I just gonna pass the action, what I wanna do. I need to get the contacts, I need to get the accounts, I need to save something, I need to get something. So you have to put an action. And this action has an optional thing, which is parameters. You might send actions, you might not send actions. I'm sorry, you must send an action, but you may send parameter or you may not. So it's optional thing, because maybe I need to get everything, okay, or sometimes I need to get a single contact by name or by ID. So it's parameters. So you sometimes you need to send the parameters, sometimes you will not send parameters. So this is the parameter object. Here I just need to send this parameter object as JSON, but you cannot send JSON as JSON. You have to make some format. Alright, so you have to format it into a string, and after that you can send it to the server. So here we got parameters. This is JSON stringify. I just give it a JSON object, has Q, and has $query. Query is the input field that we put A in it. So we need to take its value and put it to Q key, and then we need to put this as JSON inside these two brackets and send it to the server. So, but in order to send it to the server, we have to stringify it, because we need to send it as a string. Alright, so you cannot send it as JSON and take it there as JSON. You have to send it through serialization, make it as JSON, and then make the serial stringifying to it, make it a string, then give it inside the parameter, send it to the server. After that, you're gonna take it as a string, deserialize it into an object. After that, you can see it as an object. Right now, we need to get this JSON. Alright, we need to put this as an object, stringify it, send it to the server, deserialize it, and convert it back to an object, work with it. So for now, you have to understand two things, action and parameters. Action is the method, parameters is the thing that we want to send. Maybe it's a form, maybe it's data, JSON data, it's some kind of string, anything you want. You have to think in object. I need to wrap it up inside a object, JSON object, then stringify it and send it to the server as a parameter. Alright, we have this function data. When we send this, we need to get some data back. So this data back is JSON. Okay, we send the data to the server. We send data to the server as JSON as a parameters. Okay, contains action and parameters, and also we get data from the server. So when we get data from the server, we get it as JSON. So I just gonna take this data, JSON data, and stringify it and print it out in the screen. You can do for each loop on it. You can do whatever you want. Alright, but right now I just get this data from the server and display it in HTML, and after that I'm just gonna say status HTML Ajax request is complete. So this is pretty much what we have to do. But we send an action and a parameter, and this can be seen here. When we send the request, click the button, we get this data, we send the Ajax request, and Ajax request is gonna look like something like this. HTTP, this is the complete path that we have defined, and we give it an action called action1, and we give it parameter, and this parameter is an object, is a serialized or stringified object. So I stringify the object in the request, send it to the Ajax, throw Ajax to the Salesforce page. In Salesforce page, I have to take this request. All right. So the dispatcher we call HW front dispatcher. This dispatcher gonna take this request and pass this request to an Ajax method called doRoute. So this is the thing that we have. We have the request. We send this request into HW front dispatcher. HW front dispatcher gonna take this request and pass it to HW front controller. So front controller that we have here. Here we have front controller. Here we have the HW front dispatcher. This is the code for front dispatcher. Front dispatcher has nothing fancy. Only have as you can see here, we got Ajax page controller is HW front controller. We have the default action is doRoute, so we're gonna call this doRoute method inside the HW front control all the time. And we have the content type application X JavaScript. The car set is UTF-8 and show header is false because we just need to get Ajax view Ajax response from the server. We set the standard layout style sheet to false and sidebar to false, just pure document. All right. Inside this document, we have to print out the result. Result is just basically JSON. It's JSON. So we only have in this page, it's empty page, except it has a result. Result is JSON. It's a string. It's a JSON string. All right, or JSON response. So it has a JSON response. So when we call this page called front dispatcher, we're gonna connect to the HW doRoute method. doRoute method gonna print out to us a result as JSON. So this is pretty much what we have to do here. We call HW front dispatcher. Front dispatcher gonna call this doRoute method, and when we call doRoute method inside HW front control, we're gonna do routing. So we're gonna take this request, map the request action to action, and the parameter to the specified action. So let me just dig in the HW front controller and do route method. Alright. So what is result? Result here is just a JSON, as we said. So if you go and navigate through this picture down here, you're gonna see here we got the result is just the JSON value to string. What we gotta do here, just convert this JSON from JSON object, print it out on the screen as JSON. So what is JSON? JSON is just a pure object called JSON. So here inside the HW front controller, we have something called public JSON object, JSON, get and set. So the main thing that we work here on is the JSON. So we trying to print out in the H&W front dispatcher, we print out JSON. All right. So everything we gonna do here depends on this object JSON. So what is JSON object? JSON object is an object or a class. I put it here in the source code. If you go to the source code here, you're gonna go classes. Alright, you're gonna see here an object called JSON. So JSON object is the class that we have. It has all the things that we need to work with Salesforce. So Salesforce by default doesn't have a JSON object. So we need to put this JSON object as a class inside Salesforce. Alright, so this is pretty much what we have to do here. So I need to put this JSON object in Salesforce classes and using API version 13. This is very important. If you choose 28, it's not gonna work because it was built for API 13. So you need to put all these classes. I attach the code here. All these classes. This is not important. Alright, so put this and this and front control. After you put all these classes, you can set up the code. You can work with us. Alright. If you copy and paste, it's gonna work with you, but I need to dig in the code to explain what is the code gonna do for you, and for future how you customize it, how you work with it, and add additional action, additional stuff using this do route method. Alright, let me just back to the code here. We got description. Alright, we were here. So we say that everything depends on JSON object. So just attach it and work with it. Alright. Okay, here we got the do route method. This is the default method for our controller. Alright. So every time when we call the page, when we call our page the front dispatcher here, it's gonna call do route method inside the H&W front controller. So this method has a JSON object as we said, and inside this JSON object we have public void do route. Do route method is the router method for our front controller here. So any Ajax request is gonna go through this method. Inside this method, we just said here we got parameters, and we need to get the parameter sent to this page through the request. So you need to go Ajax pages, current page, or get parameters. We get all the parameters. Parameters you gonna contains action, gonna contains the parameters, gonna contains this core Ajax pages dev mode URL 1. So we're gonna take all this stuff. All right, this is known as parameter. We get all the request parameters. All right. So after we get all the request parameters, we need to create a new JSON object. All right, we just define a property here, known JSON object. We just instantiate it, create a new from it, and after that, if we said that if parameters the get action, what this mean? This means that the action that we sent, the name of this action is action 1. If we have a parameter named as action, okay, go inside the continuous code. Alright, we're gonna say string action, string parameter, the get action. We just get the parameter name after we casting it to a string, and after that we need to get the parameters that we send, the serialized parameter from the parameters. It's right now it's a string. We need to serialize back this string into an object. So right now parameters S is a string. We need to serialize it or deserialize it back into an object. Alright, so we have some fancy stuff here. It's not fancy, it's just the idea is, you know, just we put this string parameters into a map. Alright, and we say this parameter put parameter data. Alright, this is the hash key that we have. We put parameters S into parameter data inside this map called parameters. After that, we have a string, the serialized. We just say system.json serialized for this parameters. Alright, we serialize it. And after that, we take this serialized string into parameters that we have defined here. So let's here, this is the parameters, the map string. We put a string here called string serialized for this parameters, and after that we say this parameters is equal to map of string and object, cast it to map of string and object, and we use system.json deserialize and type serialized. Alright, so we make this deserialization into a map called parameters. And alright, this is just for debugging. We go a little bit down. Alright, we say parameters PRS is equal to parms. What is parms? Parms is an object that we need to serialize this deserialized string into an object. So we need to, it's a string. We need to deserialize it back into a string. In order to deserialize it back into a string, you have to make a class inside the Ajax. So I just made here a class called parms. Let me just go down here. Here we got the class of parms. It just have two things. We have a string called the queue. This is the request, the query string, and also we have the list reminder. Forget about this. It's just rubbish data. We need to focus about string queue. Okay, so I put a parameters class, and this params contains two things. We mainly care about queue. Queue is a string, which is you remember when we type queue A, for example, in the tag in the page, we type here. We type here A, and this A is the query string that we type. So if you remember, if you go down here, when we send the request, Ajax request, we say parameters if JSON stringify queue. You remember this queue? This queue must be mapped into the dispatcher or the front control. This queue must be mapped into a class. So this class, I said, this class contains two things. As I told you, we have to care about queue. Queue here is a string, right? So we need to map it there into a string. So that's why be careful about names. It's queue here, it must be queue there. Alright? So this is, you need to like define a template for that deserialized object to fit with the class, Ajax class. So queue here, it must be queue there. So let me just go back to the code. Alright, where we? Alright, we were okay. Here we are. Alright, so we define parm. Parm is a class. PRS is equal to casting all this stuff. I know it's a little bit fancy. You maybe say, "Wow, what is this?" But this is how it works. Alright, so system.json deserialize. Alright, we use this, deserialize the object. Deserialize what? Deserialize the string, the serialized string. Alright, we need to deserialize it. So we say JSON utils.JavaScript encode. This is a utility that we included here. Class is core. This is a utility. So you need to create it, and you need to call a method inside to get the data back. So alright, let me just back to the code here. Wait a minute. Alright, I just need to call this method JSEncode inside the utility here, JSON utility. Alright, and I need to cause the parameters, the map that we got, that get parameter data, cast it back into a string, and give it the parms.class. What is parm.class? Parms.class is the class that we have there under. If you go down there, you're gonna see parm. So I'm just gonna cast it to parms class. So you have to use this. So get the parameter as object. The entire code that we have here, just gonna cast this parameters back into an object called parms, because I want to work with object. I said it as JSON right, but I need to deserialize it back into an object, an Ajax object. If you work with PHP, you need to convert it into PHP object, Java object, C# object. Here we work with Ajax classes. We work with Ajax object. So you need to convert it back into Ajax object. This is what we did. Alright, forget about system debug here. Right now, we need, after we cast it back into an object, the parameters as an object, we have it's an object, we have the action. We didn't do anything with action because it's pure string. We don't have to do anything with deserialization and stuff like that because it's not an object. It's a string, so we get it as string, right? So here we got if action is equal to action 1. If you remember back, we sent action equal action 1. So we said here, we need to route. This is the routing. If a statement here means we do routing. So if action is equal to action 1, we're going to work with action 1. If it's action is equal to action 2, we're going to work with action 2, and so forth. If it's equal get your name, we're going to work with the get your name, so and so forth. Alright, so we continue here. We got a list of contact. The list of contact got records. And this records, we're gonna make a query, and this query gonna be PRSDQ. What is PRSDQ? Do you remember the request that we sent? As we said, this queue is the query string, and we put this parameter into something called PRSParms. PRSParms is a class, so we need to say PRSDQ in order to get this string from the object called parms. So this is the entire thing that we did. And we have this is local method called getRecords. GetRecords is an internal method in this class in the HW front controller. And getRecord just take the parameter, the contact name, and we return a list of contact. So where is this? Where is the getRecords method? If you go down the code, alright, gonna see here we have a SOQL query using Ajax data. So this is the method, the internal method that we have here. Public list contact getRecords. GetRecords is gonna take the contact name or PRSDQ. We're gonna pass it here. So we do some debugging. Alright. Here we got an empty list. We need to fill this list using SOQL. So we say if contact not equal to null and contact name the trim length is bigger than 0. I just want to make sure I'm not sending empty data. Alright, so I'm just gonna return the result of this SOQL query. If it's null, we're gonna return an empty list. We're gonna return null. We're not gonna display anything. So here we just go inside. I'm just gonna create a filter, contact name to filter. We just give it this filter annotation. And after that we say records is equal to select ID and name, email from contact, or name like the filter things that we have here, contact name. And we return this into records. Records is just a list of contact. And after that we return the records. So the result of this is gonna be over there here when we got a list of contacts. So we say here if records that content is not empty, we're gonna go here and make a JSON value. What is JSON value? I know there's a lot of classes, but trust me, this is thing that is gonna help you a lot. You don't need Visualforce action and Visualforce function. You just work with, as you know, you work with Salesforce the way that you used to work with. You work with Jquery and JSON and stuff like that. You don't work with the thing that Salesforce, dedicated you to do. So I just work in the way that I love. So this is a great way for, especially for PHP developers, that they use to work in this way. So you start the same way here, but in Salesforce. So I'm just make a JSON value. You know, JSON has a key and has a value. All right. So, and you may have an array inside. You know, you may have a JSON object inside JSON object, or an array inside JSON object. So here, if you go back to the code, you can see here we got a contact. And inside contact, we have an array of contacts, all right? But notice here, contact is the key for this array. So from here to here, contact is the key, all right? Email is the key for this null. Name is the key for this. All right, name is the key for this value. So this is a JSON value. This is a JSON value. This array is a JSON value for this contact. All right. So you have to grab about this. So when back here to Salesforce, we're back to the content. All right. We're back to here. We say we have. All right. Let me just go here. Get records. This is the method. We were here. All right. So we say, all right, let's make a list of JSON values equal new list JSON values. And this list right now, it's empty. We need to fill it. How we fill it? We make a for each loop in the records that we got from the get records method. And we say, okay, define a JSON object, cJSON equal new cJSON, empty. After that, we say cJSON.put opt name, and we say new JSON value. So the key is name, the JSON value is c.name. The same thing, the key is email, the JSON value is c.email. And we say values that add new JSON object, value cJSON. This is, okay, this is JSON value. Okay, this is JSON object, but this JSON object is a value inside the values. And this list of values is a value inside content. So this is what we pretty much what we did here. JSON.put contact, new JSON object, the value values. All right. So what we do with JSON.put, basically the centralized object here is JSON. So I need to return it. How do we return it? We return it here through this method. We say public string get result gonna return JSON the value to string. How did we call this? You can see here the red line back up here. You can see here we call this method throw result. So result, which is the only content that we're gonna call the JSON dot to value string. So that's why when we go to the code here and type something like A and search content, you're gonna return a list of JSON, as you can see here, which is this page. This page is what we did. This is the basic thing. So if you go to action 2, for example, click enter. All right, I got nothing. I got nothing. Why? Because if you go to the code, let me just go to the code. I just called different action. So I say if action 1, it's not action 1. So what else? It's action 2. So I just called action 2 and I have nothing inside. So this way you can call many things and you can call different things, call different objects, different methods, but you have to return string. Convert the list of standard object or custom object into a JSON format. So in this way you can work pretty much an awesome way using JSON and Ajax with Visualforce pages using this front controller architecture for Jquery and Ajax and Apex using Salesforce. So this is pretty much what we did here. You can find the code on Ahmad Abdel Naser Salesforce front controller architecture Jquery. Here you can find the code, and I just gonna put this video in the YouTube description. Thank you guys for watching. Here's Ahmad Naser all the time with you from H&W Consult MENA. We work with Salesforce, and this is pretty much what we did. I hope you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel ahmadnaser.com and Stereo 07. And thank you again for watching. See you in other video.